One of the situations that we find most challenging in today's time concerns what we're supposed to take from the legacy of Martin Luther King Jr. There's an apathy that has set in over the last several years with the thought that what he's done is already done and nothing needs to take place in the interim. That series of complacent thoughts will have us going backwards instead of forwards for progress. This to me is personal because you understand if you're not growing, that you're getting passed by. The obstacles learned, the obstacles overtaken, and the challenges that we've faced collectively, not only as a people, but also as a country, have not gone by the wayside. As a matter of fact, according to the Pew Research Center, right now in 2024, we're more politically divided than any other point in the last 50 years in the country, which was since integration. Think about that. We live in the United States of America, but we're the least united that we've been in 2.5 generations. Statistics also highlight the differences with inequality, stating that 67% of the wealth in our country is owned by the top 10%, and those of us in the bottom 50% of wage earners own 2.6% of the wealth. If we continue to stand pat, we'll watch opportunities that we have pass us by, only having conversations about what to do, mad at the powers that be, but leaving ourselves largely shackled, but this time financially, institutionalized emotionally, and blocked intellectually. There was some research done at Cal Berkeley that showed the major metropolitan areas of the country are more than 80% of them are more segregated now than they've ever been. By and large, if we don't capture what's happening in our schools, if we don't capture what's happening in our neighborhoods, if we don't capture what's happening in our churches, in our communities, we'll find ourselves looking from behind, and we don't have someone telling us proverbially to sit at the back of a bus when we volunteer ourselves to do so. If we look at the life of Martin King, we have to go beyond the words from his speech, "I Have a Dream." Many folks don't realize that at 12, he was so frustrated and disenchanted, suffering through bouts of depression, that he himself attempted not once but twice to commit suicide. As a 12-year-old boy wanting to do something, in this case going to a local parade, Martin King was admonished by his parents to stay put. And being the bad little boy that he was at the time, he snuck out of the house, went to a parade, and in the meantime, his heart, his grandmother, the relative he was closest to, fell sick while Martin King was out at the parade that he was not supposed to go to. his grandmother ended up dying. So dejected was this 12-year-old boy at not only his grandmother's death, but missing it, doing something that he wasn't supposed to be doing, that he climbed out of the window of their second-story house and jumped off the roof. Imagine our lives if we never had the opportunity to hear the words, "I have a dream," garnered from that March on Washington. Imagine our lives if we didn't have a champion in Martin King to push forward the Voting Rights Act, the Civil Rights Act in the mid-'60s. Or is our reality to simply think that it's somebody else's responsibility because somebody else would have done it? If we don't take better care of our own kids, we don't wrap our arms around them emotionally, mentally, and academically, we'll never understand how many of them are waiting for their watershed moment as they grow older that may never become, simply because they were snuffed out before they had the opportunity to grow up. We have to learn to overcome our obstacles, because every life, particularly of a child, finds itself to be important in such a manner that none of their lives can be taken for granted. Like Martin, we have to press through personal persecution. It's not lost on me that while there was 2 assassination attempts on Martin King's life, that the first one came at the hands of a 42-year-old black woman when he was 29 years old. At a book signing in New York, he's approached by Isaiah Curry, who simply asked him, "Are you Dr. Martin Luther King?" And after he proceeded and said, "Yes, I am," she simply said that she's been looking for him, and she pulls out a letter opener and stabs him in the chest. The letter opener came so close to killing him that it laid on an artery going to his heart. Literally calling the paramedics, a surgery was done with one black doctor and one white doctor, but on the way to the hospital, he was told that he could not even sneeze, or he would drown in his own blood. Overcoming personal persecution would be enough to stop a 29-year-old from being who he became, still prior to the March on Washington, still looking for his footing in his own community. At a book signing of all places, he had to deal with someone who looked like him, assaulting him. We learn from the obstacles and have our ability to overcome, because despite twice trying to commit suicide before the age of 15, despite an assassination attempt by someone who looked like him, he still went forward. Sometimes we have to understand that it's important for us to have the best people around us as possible. Having your good friends, and we tell everybody who's younger, be careful about how you choose them. My grandmother would say, you may have 1 or 2 good ones before you leave here. And if you find one, you hold on to them. Understanding the separation between those who call themselves friends and mean you no good, versus those who you can hold on to who helped you grow and hold you accountable with something that was important to Martin King. One of his good friends was Mahalia Jackson. She was not only the queen of gospel, nationally renowned, but she was someone who Martin King could confide in. The reason that we have the moniker, I Have a Dream, goes from the perspective of something that he shared with her about a dream that he had. And as he was speaking, he would climb up on parts of the dream here and there. But as she went place to place with him, singing before he spoke, she found herself sitting behind him right on the National Mall. And the man had 15 minutes to speak, prepared words, and Mahalia, recognizing the moment behind Martin as a good friend and an accountability partner, said to him repeatedly, "Martin, tell them about the dream."
Yeah.
He confided in someone who kept her hand in God's hand, who allowed him to be who he was, because he could have finished that moment without going off script, looking to the heavens and understanding that sharing who he was, based upon a nudge from a friend, would be here with us lasting more than 50 years later as we celebrate his life and legacy. Do not let this moment pass without understanding who we are honoring, so that we may learn from his obstacles, learn from his circumstances, and not have the burden of what's before us placed on any of us individually. Let me tell you something. When Martin King died and they did an autopsy on his body, they said that the stress and strain and depression that he felt had him have the mind of a 60-year-old man, and he wasn't 40 years old. I say that we ought to take this opportunity, everybody grabbing a little bit so the weight is not too burdensome, and help carry a legacy forward for our kids, our future, and for what's most important to us collectively. So whether they take prayer out of schools or not, should not stop you from praying with your child in the morning. Whether they limit the Black history that's taught in schools does not stop us from a community, as churches, to help foster that education back into our own communities, recognizing that Black history is still American history. We have a responsibility, not only to our kids, but also to each other, to not have a situation where we're simply saying the words without understanding the man who gave the words, so that we may live full lives, understanding who God has intended for us to be, recognizing our point and our purpose, and not letting another day go by where a dream that Martin had does not become our reality in today. Thank you very much.